Hi guys, and welcome to my February Cat-Walk TBR wrap-up. So my Cat-Walk TBR is a TBR game that I play to find prompts to help me pick books, because otherwise I get overwhelmed by all of the selection, and so it helps me kind of get excited about fulfilling prompts and stuff. So I thoroughly enjoy having a TBR dictated by prompts. So now, I did not, if you have seen my March Cat-Walk TBR, you will already know what I'm going to say. I did not complete my February TBR, so I did take a punishment. You will have seen that in that game. So, let's go ahead and go in. I have all the prompts listed and the books that were supposed to have been read, as well as having the books next to me. So let's go ahead and delve in, and I will tell you what the prompt was, just in order that I have it written, and what the book was, and if I read it or did not read it. So, okay, so the first prompt I have listed is I landed on learning facts, and this is to read the first unread owned book on Goodreads. So what I do is I scroll through Goodreads. The first book that I have that someone's marked as want to read, currently reading, or something like that, or is recommended by Goodreads, is the first one that I own that I have not read. So that one I landed on, and I'm actually really glad that I landed on it. Where is this book? Where is it? Right here, right in front of my face. I landed on the selection by Kira Cass. I gave this one 4 stars, and I actually really enjoyed this. I do like dystopian books. I feel like I don't read enough of them. I read more like fantasy, science fiction, contemporary romance, adventure, things like that. I don't read enough dystopian, and I absolutely, every dystopian I have read, I have thoroughly enjoyed, which is not saying much because there's not a lot that I have read in that field, but I do love it. So this one we are following America. Singer is the girl's name, which is fitting because singer is the family profession, and so they are divided up into anywhere from like a 1 I think is the royal family, 2s are below that, and then it just, the higher the number the lower the caste system. And she is a 4 or a 5. I don't remember what she is, but she is in love with someone who's a caste lower than her. She can't understand why she has to be married within that same caste system, and things like that. So, but there's this thing that happens every so often called a selection. Girls are encouraged to apply, and then if they make the cut, they are selected to go to the palace and be courted by the prince to marry. So one of them will end up becoming queen, and this one is just kind of following that process, and some people absolutely love her, and then within the girls that are selected you have little cliques and things like that, and I don't know, I just thoroughly enjoyed that. So this is the first, and I think there's 5 books in this series. So 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I love the sass of America in this, and that she speaks her mind even though it's the prince, and she's supposed to have this certain air about her, and the prince at times finds that actually refreshing, where he can basically trust what she says, that she's not putting on a front to try to impress him. She's just being her, and that's what I love. So 4 stars, thoroughly enjoyed that. So yeah. Okay, so prompt number 2 I got was See in the Dark, and this is to read an ebook. For this one, I read Borne by VanderMeer. It is the first book in, it's like a duology, but there is a novella in between the first book and the second book. So Borne, it is weird fiction, and it's classified as weird fiction. I think horror was also a tag. Basically, there's this big organization, and this is a book that you can have deep, like book club, or whether book club or not book club, but like deep philosophical conversations with. Basically, there's this big organization that was run by this person categorized as the magician. It's just a person. But this organization, you decide personally. They're trying to, I guess, make the world a better place. Whether or not it's done ethically, that's up for you to decide. And things are put out into the world that you think might be good, but turns out may not actually be good and can create a lot of devastation and destruction. Basically, at this point, a lot of people have lost their lives. There's been a lot of harm to the environment, and not only just plants, but also to the animals. And that's affected things like, there's this bear called Mord, and he is like huge, like big building type of size. So not like a grizzly bear or anything, but like big building type of size, and can fly. So you've got this flying bear, and he's got these little minion bears that follow him, and they eat people. And then there's these things that are thought to come from this organization that will also go and tear people limb from limb. And people have learned to become scavengers and look for things that they can safely eat, and what to avoid. There's the gal, Rachel is her name, comes across this bioengineered product that turns out can talk and can change shapes, and is a quick learner with things, and that thing is called Borne. And it's just interesting to see. It's like how, I don't know, it was just, it's weird fiction, so it's hard to describe, but it's like this bioengineered product. It can flatten, it can change shape, it can transform itself into look like someone, and so you just try to survive day to day. It was weird. I gave it 3 stars. There were times I did find my mind wandering, but I think that's because things got a little complicated for my mind to process and understand. But I do want to continue on with the series. I am wondering, it ended in enough of a cliffhanger that I'm wondering if it's going to continue on from that and what's going to happen with the characters, and things like that. So it was definitely an interesting read, and it's definitely a weird fiction. And Jeff VanderMeer, I read a series by Jeff VanderMeer. I think it was like the Annihilation series, and I think there's a 4th book in that that's going to be coming out, but I haven't heard any updates on that. But as of right now, it's a trilogy, and that is also classified as weird fiction. So Jeff VanderMeer writes weird fiction, and it's very interesting, and it can definitely be something that you can definitely have some very deep conversations about to determine if something's ethical or not. Was it the right thing to do or not? Things like that. Were the intentions good, etc. All right, moving on. I landed on Clowder, which is a group of cats, and this can be of all breeds and all ages. So a Clowder, so this is to read a book that is in a series. For this one, I continued on with a Pinch of Magic series. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. So this is a Tangle of Spells written by Michelle Harrison. It's the 3rd book in the A Pinch of Magic series. This was my favorite book in this series so far. So we are following the sisters. There's 3 sisters. They live with their grandma. And basically in the first book, they can't leave the island because of a family curse. And one of the sisters is so adventurous, she just wants to figure out how to break the curse. And you're following as they do this adventure. They can't go past a certain point, otherwise after a certain amount of time they'll die. This book, we're following them in a house, and there's this weird stuff starts happening, and there's these poems that pop up about witches and sorcery, or well, witchcraft, and how you can't trust certain people and certain actions, and people are losing their memories and things like that. Very interesting. I can't really give more away because this is a middle grade. I'm going to spoil a lot of stuff. So, but this is my favorite, and I did not know there was a 4th book. I thought this was just a trilogy, but I saw someone talking about that, and then I went ahead and ordered the next book, and I am so excited to continue on. I don't know how many there will be in this series, but I absolutely loved it. So 5 stars. Next up, I landed on the prompt New Home, and that is to read a debut book. Could be a debut, like an author that has books out, but maybe they are debuting into a different age range or a different genre. Could be their first book out completely, or it could be a new to me author. So something that's brand new in some way. So for this one, I selected Futureland by H.D. Hunter. I cannot tell you anything about this one because I did not get to this book. So yeah, unfortunately, this is one that I just didn't get to. So, and I'm bummed. I wanted to get to all of these, but I just ran out of time. I mean, today of filming this, it's the 26th. There's one book we'll get to that I am almost in the middle of. There's no way I'm going to get to these books. So I'm going to put these back on my shelf over here, kind of sitting there, and I'll just try to get to them as I can and as I have time, because I really do want to get to these. So I'm going to put this one in kind of a different spot. Okay, moving on, I landed on Litterbox, and that is for a book that I don't particularly care for the cover, so like an ugly cover or something I just don't particularly like. So this one I went with For the Fighting Spirit of the Walnut by Takashi Hiraide. There was a book I read by this author, and it was a novel. It was a regular novel, and I really enjoyed that one, so I picked this one up. It's a collection of poetry. I would like to get more into poetry, but I just struggle with it because sometimes things are so vague that it just flies right over my head, and that was the case with this one. I did not give this any stars. I think if someone enjoys poetry more or is more adept at reading poetry and can understand poetry better, they might enjoy this a lot more. The thing that's interesting about this book is half of it is in English and the other half is in Japanese. So, I mean, that's one thing I liked, but I didn't understand any of the poetry. I mean, I might have understood a line here or there, but I just struggled with understanding it. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and unhaul this, let this find a new home, and hopefully someone else can enjoy it much more than I did and hopefully understand it, because I sure did not. Let's go ahead and move on. Next up was so those are all the ones from mine. So on my game, I have one that's called Cat Videos. It's a YouTube prompt for that one. If I land on that, I have a jar of booktubers that have TBR games. So I pull out a booktuber that has a game, and then I have to take all of the prompts that they get from their game, find a book, and I add it to my pile. So, I landed on Kaylani from Kaylani Simply Me, or that's the one that I pulled from the jar. And she had quite a few prompts. She does a bingo game, and it's really fun. So she did a TBR jar pull to kick off her game. So that's what I did. I pulled out a book in the True Colors series, which are all based on true events. They're fictionalized, but they are based on true events in American history. So I did not know when I pulled that out that it was one, part of a series, and two, if these were ones that I could read in any order, or if they had to be read, you know, in chronological order. And someone did tell me on that particular video they can be read in any order because they are following completely separate events. They're just all within the realm of fictionalizing and retelling something that has happened in American history. So I personally will continue to go in order, just because that's my personal preference. So I can't remember the name of the book, but the first one in that particular series, and these are written by different authors. The first one is called The White City, and that one was written by Grace Hitchcock, and this actually happens to be Grace's debut book. And I really enjoyed this. I actually gave it 3 stars. It felt just shy. I felt like it could have been longer. So that's probably part of why it did not get a 4-star. I felt like there was just a little bit of explanation in certain areas that were just kind of missing and falling a little flat and lacking. So that's why it didn't get a 4-star. But overall, I still really enjoyed this. It is a clean romance, but it also talks about an event in American history. So the White City is a place in Chicago. There was this fair. The very first Ferris wheel was there. And at that time, when people were going to the fair, there was this person called basically Mr. Holmes, or H. Holmes or something like that, who murdered people. He was a serial killer. He was also a con artist and and things like that. And so you're following as, in this particular book, this girl thinks she sees him kidnap someone, and so she wants to throw herself into an investigation. Her dad is a police investigator, and he finally gives way and says, fine, you can go work for that man. And this is before they realized how evil Mr. Holmes was. And so she goes undercover, and she is not a member of the police force. She's just a daughter of a police chief. And she goes and tries to look for clues and spur on an investigation. She falls in love. It's also at this time where family would say, you need to be courted by this man and marry into a wealthy family and things like that. And so you have a little bit of that going on, a little bit of side romance. But I liked it. I have read a nonfiction book called Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. Absolutely loved that one. And so I kind of knew what to expect going into this one. But just with the whole thing with Holmes. But it was interesting to see a fictionalized account of it. And so I liked that one. 3 stars, and definitely will continue on. Next up, the prompt that Kailani got was to read a Kindle book. For this one, I selected Rolling in the Deep by Mira Grant. Now, Mira Grant is a pen name for Seanan McGuire. I tried reading the Wayward Children series. I read the first one. It was not for me. I think some... what is that genre? Magical realism can be kind of hit or miss for me. And so I did not particularly care for that. I don't know if I'll continue on with the series. I don't think I will. Unless something comes up where it's like give a series or an author a second chance, then I might. But so far I've read under Mira Grant, again, Seanan McGuire's pen name, I read the Newsflesh series. Absolutely loved that series. So I was more optimistic that where this was written under the pen name of Mira Grant that I would like it, and I was correct. I gave it 4 stars. This was 85 pages, so it was a very short story, and this one you're following, and it's a prequel to a standalone book. This one, you're following this group of people who decide to go on the sea to try and talk about and discover if mermaids are in fact mythical creatures or fantastical creatures, or if they are in fact real. So they go on the voyage to try and do that, and the next thing you know, everyone on the ship is dead. And so you're following the events leading up to the death of everyone on the ship and what happened. Some of the parts were a little unsettling. It does get very gruesome with bloodshed. I will say that. I loved it, but it was good. And basically then you're just kind of trying to figure out, it's kind of like told in a documentary format where it's like what happened. These are the thoughts of why everyone left but no one came back, and what led up to it. What about all this stuff that was seen on the boat and things like that. So it was interesting and I loved it. Okay, moving on. The prompt that Kailani got was to read a prompt for Season-a-thon, and so I went to the most recent Season-a-thon, and which was the one that took place in December, and the prompt that I selected from that grouping was Reindeer Chow, which was to read an animal on the cover or in the story. This one I selected Two Wicked Desserts by Lynn Cahoon. This is the second book in a Kitchen Witch mystery series. Now there is a prequel novella, and then you have book number 1, and then there's a novella and a book number 2. And then there's a novella and then book number 3 and then book number 4. I haven't seen anything about like a 3.5, but I don't know. I really am enjoying this series. I gave this some 4 stars. I think I've gave everything 4 stars so far. So Mia is in Idaho. She has magical abilities, and the magical abilities run in families. She buys the school that is no longer in use and is in the process of trying to convert it to like a culinary academy, cooking place, and where she will do catering and things like that, and host and cater parties and things. With a cozy mystery, you have someone that ends up dead. The suspect or a family member or someone becomes a prime suspect. The main character that you follow generally thinks if they're the prime suspect, it doesn't, or someone else, it doesn't matter, that the police are missing key clues, and so they insert themselves into the investigation to try to solve it, and things like that. And they put their lives in danger. So, standard cozy mystery. I love it. Quick, comforting read. 4 stars. There's a couple things I highlighted in this. So let me just share one thing. It says, "You and I talked about the power of forgiveness. If I hold on to the anger, it's only hurting me." Let's see if there's another one I want to share. "Failure isn't fatal. Everyone has times in their lives when they have to take stock of what's happening." So there's a couple of things I highlighted in there. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Next up, the prompt that Kaylani got was to read a 2021 release. For this one, I selected Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. Can't tell you anything about this one. Unfortunately, did not get to it. I did read The House in the Cerulean Sea the year it came out, which was also by TJ Klune, which is why I got this one, because I absolutely loved it. And I was hoping to get to this one, but I just did not. So at some point I will get to that one. So that'll go back on my little stack to get to as I can. Next up was to read a spicy book. And for this one I selected The Worst Best Man. I don't know if this is going to fulfill that prompt, but it's, I don't know. We will see. Can't tell you anything about it. Didn't read it. Didn't get to it one. This was written by Mia Sosa. I like the tagline on this. It says, "Hell hath no fury like a bride scorned." So, yeah, I don't know anything about that one. So let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so the next prompt that she got was to read a book that has representation. Could be LGBT rep, which the book I selected does. Could be diversity rep. I don't think it had that, or it wasn't talked about, or any other kind of rep, like disability rep, and this one does. And this is also the read for the year-long readathon that I host, which is to read a book that has autism representation each month. We started in February, and this was the first book, which was Queens of Geek by Jen Wilde. This does has autism rep. This is in dual perspective. You're following Charlie and Taylor, and Charlie is bi, so you do have LGBT rep, and Taylor is autistic, and they are from Australia. They have gone to Los Angeles to participate in the Comic-Con convention, so it is geek-esque, so to speak, and you have romance. So I thoroughly enjoyed this one. This was the first book that I ever read that I knew had autism rep, that I figured that out quite early on, and realized I actually felt represented in a book. And so I can see a lot of push to have a lot of different representation, because it does, people can feel seen, and this is one that I did. And I gave this one 5 stars just because it has such a special nostalgic type of meaning for me and what it means to me. And I thoroughly enjoyed this. The autism rep was done very well. And I believe Jen is also autistic, so it's obviously some of it's coming from a personal experience as well, or first-hand account. So I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Read it, 5 stars. Okay, next up was to read a book that you bought secondhand. And for this one, I went with The Sleepwalker with R.L. Stine. Can't tell you anything about it, didn't get to it, but it is secondhand. So that's all I can tell you. Unfortunately, did not get to that book. Okay, next book prompt that she got was to read an adult fantasy. For this one, I selected A Time of Dread by John Gwynne. This is book number 1 in Of Blood and Bone series. That's all I can tell you. Unfortunately, I did not get to this one, and I'm very disappointed. I was so excited. I just ran out of time. There were other books I wanted to get to as well for readathons, and so this one just kind of kept getting pushed back, unfortunately. But hopefully I'll pick this one up soon, because I absolutely love John Gwynne's writing. The next prompt that Kaylani got was to read a sequel. For this one, I went with Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. Thick book. This is book 2 in the Farseer trilogy. All I can really tell you about this one, and yes, I did read this one. I gave this one 4 stars. You're following Fitz, And Fitz, in the first book, is basically dropped off by his maternal grandparents at the castle because he is the bastard son of the prince in waiting, who was Prince Chivalry. And because he finds out he has a bastard son, he abdicates the throne and leaves. Fitz is raised by the stable master. What's his name? I am blanking on his name. Anyway, and the king takes an interest in Fitz, and because it's like, well, he can kind of go between worlds. He can go and be with the people who are not of royalty because he is a bastard, but yet he is the son of the former prince in waiting, and so he does have that royal blood. So he can kind of go in between different realms of life, and there's a lot of fighting, and there's talk of the ability to skill, and which is be able to communicate with someone's mind without physically speaking to them, and they don't have to be in the same room. They can be in another different part of the city. And there's also talk of an ability called the wit, which is the same thing as a skill, except it's with animals instead. So it's like a human being able to communicate with the mind of an animal. So, and the wit is considered an evil thing, and the skill is good. And so you're just following him. So the king takes that special interest in Fitz, and they decide to train him up to be an assassin. And so you're just following Fitz as he is the royal assassin and lives as being the bastard son of the former prince in waiting. And that's pretty much all I could tell you without spoiling. Thoroughly enjoyed. This is an epic high fantasy as well. So if you like fantasy but don't like epic high fantasies, then you may not like this one. It does kind of drag at times. There is a little bit of a romance in this. It is clean. There's nothing explicit there. But you have betrayal, and it's, I don't know, it's a good time. It's a good time. I liked it. Okay, so we are on the last two prompts, and this second to last was to read a book by a POC author or a person of color. For this one, I selected a middle grade. This is Tales from a Not So Talented Pop Star. This is book number 3 in the Dork Diaries series. This is written in journal format. You have images that the main character draws. This was written by Renee Russell. This continues on from where book 2 left off, book 2 from book 1. This person's in junior high. The main character's in junior high, and she is just journaling about her life being in middle school, and it's just fun. It makes me reminisce on some of the good times that I had in junior high. I preferred life in junior high much more than high school. I hated high school. Junior high I enjoyed quite a bit more. Wasn't my favorite thing, but it was better. So this takes me back to that and remembering the good things, and also makes me think of kind of like the things when you watch TV shows and stuff that focus around junior high life, like Lizzie McGuire, how things are fantasized and romanticized. And it's like some of the stuff is stuff that I wish I could have seen firsthand. But I don't know, I thoroughly enjoyed this. And Renee Russell is black, and so this definitely fulfills the prompt. And this is definitely a good time. Very quick read, absolutely enjoyable, absolutely fun time. Okay, the last prompt that Kaylani pulled from her TBR bingo game was to read a book that fulfills the buzzword for the month. So because it was February, the buzzword was for verbs. And I will give you a spoiler on this one. I actually have a different book that I read, but the book that I picked for this prompt that I'm currently reading, which will not fulfill the buzzword, but it fulfills Kaylani's buzzword prompt. If that makes sense, which is verbs, because it's the buzzword for Kaylani, for the Books and Lala buzzword-a-thon that takes place all year. Basically, I have another book that fulfilled that for the actual buzzword prompts. I don't know. I hope you get it. I'm just like a mess, so my mind's all over. The book that I originally picked for that one is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Now, lock can be like an actual lock, or it is a verb where you go and you lock something. So in this particular case where the title is Lock Every Door, lock is a verb. This one I am on chapter 21, which is page 159. So I am just shy of halfway, and I'm enjoying it so far. So Jules is now basically kind of like an apartment sitter in this Bartholomew place, and evidently there's some sketchy things that go on with the history and the past of this apartment hotel place, and things are getting to the point now where they're starting to get creepy. She's finding things out. There's someone that she thought could have been a friend, and some stuff has happened, and she's trying to find answers. But yet one of the rules of being the apartment sitter at the Bartholomew is you cannot be too inquisitive. You've got to keep your nose to yourself. So yeah, so this is the one that I picked for Kaylani's TBR game. But yeah, so that's it. And I did not finish this one. I will finish this month, so that one will be completed. So as of right now, I have completed 7 physical books, but I have also completed 3 ebooks for my February Cat-Walk TBR, so 7, 10. And then this book, once I finish this month, which again, today's the 26th, this will be finished within either today or tomorrow. That's 11 books that I will have completed. So these are, just consider Lock Every Door completed. So these are the completed books, and then there's only 5 books that I did not complete. So I think I did pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with how I did. I'm pretty happy with that. So overall, I think a great month. Now, when it comes to, I will tell you this, so again, this was the only one that was a bit of a disappointment. I was hoping to absolutely like that one, but I just didn't understand it, so it is being unhauled, and we'll find a new home. So that's it. Let me know what your favorite read of the month. I'm looking at my list. I think I don't know. I want to say that my favorite read of the month, aside from Queens of Geek, which I absolutely loved, let's see. I don't know. They were all good. Other than finding Walnut one, I liked them all. So it's hard to pick a favorite. So that's it. Talk to me in the comment section below. And until next time, stay true to yourself and enjoy a good book. And I'll talk to you later.